Is there anything more comforting than the warm embrace of a light-hearted, non-challenging, mildly amusing sitcom about a bunch of quirky, lovable friends in a generic yet broad setting, like a warm hot meal your mum made on a cloudy Sunday afternoon to distract you from all of life's things and to keep the demons at bay? And what if we sprinkle a little bit of nostalgia into this warm, juicy soup slash pie slash roast, whatever kind of food you're thinking about as I do this vague metaphor? And then what happens if we sprinkle just like a little bit more, like maybe a little bit too much more, of nostalgia? And at this point, it's starting to feel more like a cock tease nostalgia, where you're like, they were only on screen for 15 seconds. That's actually not that much time. I know it's only 22 minutes, but 15 seconds, 3 lines, actually not that long. Starting to feel quite like a cock tease, but, not in the good way. And then, after that fantastic Force Awakens-esque pilot episode, we are then treated to the series, which does feel like you've grabbed the meal and then you've, for some reason, filtered the meal into like a baggie, like a take-home baggie that your mum has, your mum's made the meal and she's like, here's the meal, and she's gonna put it in a little doggy bag for you. But for some reason, she's put like a sifter, like a filter that to stop some of the stuff getting through, and most of the delicious soup it's gone through, which is the series. But some of the dregs, to stop the dregs, like the clunky blah you don't want, but it's the stuff you did want. It's the nostalgia. The cameos and the nostalgia is all like stuck in like her sifter, her filter, and then she threw that in the bin, and you're like, Mum, why did you do that? I liked those elements of this show. And then she's like, no, but this is the real thing that you want to take home and, eat for 2 to 9 more days in a row. Tasty. And you're like, I will accept this because I have been tricked with nostalgia and warm, motherly love of something I used to love as a child. So I will sit here and I will eat it. But I will not enjoy it as much as that first bite being that first episode. I think I've got lost somewhere here. I'm hearing myself. I am. I think I've got lost with the metaphor somewhere. What I'm saying is that first episode of that 90's show, which is the review I'm doing, is actually not a review of my mother's cooking, although I can see how you might think that. But that first episode, it got me good. The member berries. It was like, I remember those characters from that show that I loved as a kid. And then the show like continued, and they were not as present as I was wanting in the show. And I just kept watching it. I was like, well, Red and Kitty are still here. And they are still just fire. Just so good. But then there's like the actual main cast, like the new characters, our new cast, the people that we're following. And they range from cringy to just forgettable to surprisingly funny at times. But it's weird because every single character is like all 3 of those things somehow. So what is my biggest takeaway having watched the first season of the sequel series to the beloved classic sitcom, that 70s show that is the 90's show? It's the 90's, that 90's show. Oh, we're in the 90's. Well, I think my biggest takeaway is that I'm getting old. I'm starting to hit that middle part of my life where I'm actually not the free, life-loving teenager who could just kind of do anything. Or I'm not even in my early 20s, believe it or not. I know I look young and hip and fresh and cool. I am not. I am so old, and it hurts every day because I have to, when you're brushing the teeth and all that stuff, you do have to, even if you try and avoid it, look in the mirror at some point during the day. It's like unavoidable. They put mirrors in so many rooms. It's upsetting. But, you know, you can really just like push that, you know, that fear of aging and dying and just being not a young, hip, cool, young man boy anymore. You can really push it down just for most of the day. And then you come home and you're like, oh, I've had a awful day at work because I was at work. And then you're just like, I'm just going to put on some comfort food television, a sitcom that's a sequel series to one of my favorite sitcoms. And I'm not even a sitcom guy because of, you know, the laugh tracks and they're not usually not being actually quite funny. And, you know, like, oh, like It's Sunny in Philly and other examples of things that might be good that are sitcoms. But usually I'm like, Modern Family, why does everyone keep saying it's good? It's not good. Or is it good? Comment below. Is it good? Should I watch every episode of it? Because I will. I have somehow all the time in the world, yet I feel like I never have time to do anything. I was so excited to sit down and watch that 90s show. And as soon as it started, even with the legacy characters coming in and everyone's like kind of look the same, but, you know, they're now parents. Eric, the main character of this show, is Eric's daughter. So that means Eric has a child who is old enough to be the main character in this show, 15 to 16, around that age. And it's just like, you know, you're like, oh, that's fun because he's this certain age now. And then you realize that means that you're a certain age now. And then you start going, oh, well, I should have seen this coming, this moment in time, because movies just keep doing it. Legacy sequels at the wazoo. Hollywood is only really doing one thing now. Remember the 80s/70s/ a period before now? Remember? And I'm like, I do remember. It was so good because I was a child and I, you know, had an underdeveloped brain. So I just loved everything. I mean, not to say I don't love everything now, but I love everything, you know, like this show, which I didn't hate, even though I probably should. Because is it good? Absolutely not. Why would you think it's good, you idiot? But then that little voice starts kind of, you know, just coming into your brain, just coming in and being like, well, Eric, if Eric and Donna are this age and they have a child that's that age, you're actually closer to them than the child. And then you really, you know, it starts kind of like digging deep in, like eating at you like some kind of parasite, like a virus. It just getting into your soul, and you're like, well, I do, you know, because as I said, mirrors everywhere. Have to sometimes see a couple of grey hairs kicking in, you know. I do some filters so you can't tell. Bit of the thinning of the hair at times. Not as bad as others, I will admit. But it's starting. And I'm like, but I didn't think I was that old. But then you look at a show like this and you're like, but technically I am that old. And then you're just like, tick, 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 tick. Death is coming for us all. Aging is something you cannot stop. I can stop a lot of things. And my job, I put my foot down and go, this behavior is not acceptable, people at work. I put my foot down and it stops. There is power. You know, there are some things in your life you can control, is my point. Aging and time and all those things, you just can't control any of them. And it's making me, at times, think about that, but not right now, because right now, you know what I'm focusing on? Just fun-loving, you know, comfort food that is American sitcoms. Oh, and sorry. I got distracted with things, but I forgot to say, my review of that 90s show, it's fine. It's exactly what it wants to set out to be. It's a throwback sitcom show. It's got the incessant, horrific laugh track. It's got some really cringy, horrible jokes, but there are moments of genuine heart and genuine emotion, and it's very kind of cheesy, but sincere and kind of nice, and I liked that. It was just very light-hearted. There are a couple of episodes with a couple of characters that kind of really handle the subject matter they're dealing with in such a short time quite well, like surprisingly well, and then every now and then they'll be like, what about this? And you go, oh, they have completely botched that, and it just comes across as really just cringy and awful. Like, I don't know, one of those things where I'm like, could you binge or is this cringe? Both. You could binge this and think it's cringe. It is just, like, it's all over the place. It's an absolute mess. It's not a good show. Like, it's not a great show, but I don't know. Are sitcoms ever, like, great shows unless they, like, strike gold? Haven't seen The Office, but everyone keeps being like, you should watch The Office. It's actually gold. Sure, shut up. It's on the list. The never-ending list. Imagine I put a graphic of like those 6,000 shows on my list and just was like scrolling so quickly. We're like, well, look at that list. So many shows he's yet to watch. How is he going to have time for The Office? Especially when I need to rewatch that 70 show now, because I am going to. So I guess they won. I guess this show won because it's made me go back and go, I remember liking that as a kid. It's probably serviceable. It does feel like a weird show that doesn't know its identity, though, where it's like, are you trying to be like a sequel series for like that 70 show's fans? Are you trying to be a new show that's, using elements from that 70 show for like new fans, like people younger than me, which isn't even that young. I mean, no, it is young because I am also very young. I'm getting confused. No, I am actually very old now. It doesn't weigh on me at all. I love this point in my life where I am. Is this accessible if you don't like that 70 show or haven't seen that 70 show? Absolutely not. There are so many cameos, but also just like the locations and things. Like they'll go to a place and be like, we're here at the water tower. What? And it's like, without that knowledge of where you are, so much of it I think would feel odd and just like kind of bizarre. But I don't know, maybe it is totally fine if you're 12 and you're like, that 90s show, I was born in the 90s. No, they wouldn't have been born in the 90s. They would have been 12, 20, 10. My brain stopped for a second when I realized someone could have been born in 2010 and they'd be like old enough to watch content. And just for a second, I think I actually died. Oh my god. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and comment below. I would love to know what everyone thought of that 90s show. Big yays? Big nays? Existential dread, anyone?